The wind howled through the twisted skeletons of skyscrapers, a ghostly lament, the only soundtrack to Ethan Cross's existence. Earth, once a vibrant tapestry of life, was now a mosaic of rusted ruins and desolate landscapes, a silent testimony to a forgotten age. Ethan, a treasure hunter by necessity and by an insatiable longing for something more, moved with the quiet grace of a predator through the labyrinth of concrete and steel. His goal was not gold or jewels, but the whispers of ancient technology, the artifacts of a past that promised to unlock the mysteries of the present. Today, his search had led him deep into the bowels of an underground complex, a place legends claimed held the remnants of a pre-collapse civilization. The beam of his flashlight danced across forgotten hieroglyphs and corroded machines, every shadow hiding a secret, every echo amplifying the loneliness of his journey. The air was thick with the scent of dust and metal, an aroma Ethan knew well, yet today it carried a strange, almost electric note. He crawled through a narrow tunnel, the sound of his boots echoing in the darkness. Suddenly, the ground gave way beneath him, and Ethan plunged into a vast chamber, landing with a dull thud. Dust billowed around him, choking the air for a moment before settling, revealing a vision that defied all comprehension. At the center of the chamber, wrapped in a pulsating field of blue-silver energy, floated a figure. It wasn't human. Slender and ethereal, with skin that seemed to both absorb and emit light, and hair that drifted like seaweed in an unseen current. Her eyes, closed in deep slumber, shimmered faintly beneath the lids with a violet hue unlike anything Ethan had ever seen. It was Lyra. Trapped within a cocoon of stasis, she was a vision of alien beauty, a paradox of fragility and power. The chamber walls were carved with symbols Ethan couldn't recognize, yet they seemed to pulse with a life of their own. He stepped closer, his breath caught, his heart hammering against his ribs. The energy field hummed, radiating a strange warmth. It was as if time itself had stopped in this place, waiting for his arrival. Ethan's curiosity, his eternal compass, pulled him forward. He reached out, hesitating only for a heartbeat, and touched the shimmering barrier. A spark of energy crackled, sending a tingling wave up his arm. In that instant, Ethan knew his life, and perhaps the fate of Earth itself, would never be the same again. The echo of the ruins had finally revealed its deepest secret. With his heart still pounding in his chest, Ethan managed to deactivate the stasis field, a process that demanded a mix of intuition and his rudimentary knowledge of ancient technology. The blue-silver cocoon dissolved into a shimmering mist, revealing Lyra in all her fragile beauty. He lifted her in his arms, surprised by the lightness of her body and the smooth, almost weightless texture of her skin. Carrying her back to his hidden refuge, a well-concealed cave high in the mountains, was an arduous journey, but adrenaline and awe kept him moving. Ethan's hideout was a sanctuary of scrap and ingenuity, a stark contrast to the ancient chamber where he had found Lyra. Rusted tools, torn maps, and survival gear filled the space, illuminated by a crackling fire and a few dim solar lamps. He laid her gently on an improvised bed, watching her with a mixture of fascination and apprehension. Who was she? Where had she come from? And why had she been hidden deep beneath the earth? Hours passed in tense silence, broken only by the crackle of the flames. Then, Lyra's violet eyes opened. They were deep and ancient, carrying a wisdom that seemed to stretch beyond human understanding. A soft, melodic sound escaped her lips, a tone that was both haunting and beautiful, though Ethan couldn't comprehend it. He moved closer, cautiously, offering her water and a small piece of dried meat. She studied him with an intensity that made him feel utterly exposed. Slowly, through gestures and strange, almost otherworldly attempts at communication, Lyra began to express herself. She didn't speak English, but through a subtle form of telepathy, or perhaps a universal language of emotion, Ethan began to grasp fragments of her thoughts. She was from a distant world called Aethel, and she had come to Earth on a mission she could not reveal. Forced into stasis to avoid detection, she had slept for centuries. Her eyes carried both deep sorrow and a quiet, lingering fear, yet also an innocent curiosity about Ethan and his broken world. In return, Ethan told her about the ruined Earth, the struggle to survive, and his own restless search for meaning. He showed her the few books he had saved, the faded photographs of a world that no longer existed. Lyra listened with a captivating stillness, her violet eyes locked on his, absorbing every word, every emotion. The initial tension between them slowly gave way to mutual fascination. They were two beings from different worlds, bound by chance and loneliness, beginning to forge a connection that would one day defy the stars. Days melted into weeks within Ethan's mountain refuge, and with every sunset, the bond between him and Lyra deepened. She, with her ethereal grace and ancient wisdom, was a striking contrast to the roughness of Ethan's life. He, with his resilience and unyielding curiosity, was a window into a world Lyra had only ever observed from afar. Through a blend of subtle telepathy and a shared sign language they had created together, Lyra began to paint a picture of her home, Aethel. She described a world of breathtaking harmony between nature and technology, where cities floated among the clouds and bioluminescent forests illuminated nights without stars. Aethel was a paradise, a beacon of order and progress, but it was also a world bound by strict laws and an unbending hierarchy. Lyra spoke often of her need to return, a growing urgency that weighed heavier each day. She couldn't stay on Earth, not only for her own safety but because her people depended on her. And to Ethan's astonishment, she invited him to go with her. "Earth is dying, Ethan," her voice echoed softly within his mind, heavy with sorrow. "My world offers a chance, a new life. But there are rules. Many rules." Ethan, who had spent his entire life sifting through the remnants of a once great world, felt a flicker of hope he hadn't known in years. The promise of a new beginning, of a universe beyond the ruins, called to him like a siren's song. He was tired of endless struggle, of the silence that haunted every night. Adventure was calling once again, and with it, the possibility of a future beside Lyra. The decision was made. Lyra revealed the location of her ship, hidden beneath layers of rock and debris miles away. It was a marvel of alien engineering, sleek, silent, and perfectly camouflaged against the terrain. Preparing for departure became a frenzy of movement and anticipation. Ethan gathered his few precious belongings while Lyra reactivated the ship's dormant systems with light touches and concentrated thoughts. The vessel, lifeless for centuries, came alive with a gentle hum and an inner glow that bathed the cavern in silver light. Excitement mingled with apprehension as reality set in. They were about to leave everything behind, the dying Earth, the ruins, the ghosts of history, and embark on a journey toward the unknown. The call of Aethel was too powerful to resist. And for the first time in a long, long while, Ethan Cross dared to believe in the possibility of tomorrow. Lyra's ship, a masterpiece of engineering that defied Ethan's comprehension, glided into Earth's night sky with silent elegance. There was no roar of engines, no fiery exhaust, only a gentle hum that vibrated through the deck like the heartbeat of something alive. Ethan watched through the panoramic window as Earth shrank beneath them, a blue and white sphere fading into the vast, endless dark. The scars of its ruins disappeared into the void, leaving behind a strange melancholy, a quiet farewell to a broken world he had still called home. Lyra stood beside him, her violet eyes fixed on the unfolding stars ahead. She explained the ship's complex navigation systems with an ease that revealed her deep connection to the technology itself. The cockpit was minimalist but breathtaking, smooth surfaces glowing with soft light, control panels that responded to the slightest touch. It was a world of precision and beauty, a stark contrast to the rough, improvised life Ethan had known. To him, it was a glimpse of a future beyond imagination. The days of their journey became filled with a growing intimacy. Space, vast, silent, infinite, became their sanctuary. Lyra taught Ethan about the constellations of her hemisphere, the legends of her people, and the philosophy that guided her civilization. In return, Ethan shared stories of Earth, of its once rich history and tragic downfall, of his own life as a treasure hunter wandering through its ashes. They laughed, debated, and most of all, listened, building bridges across the abyss of their worlds. The pull between them was undeniable, a gravitational force drawing them closer with each passing hour. Amid the glittering stars, their eyes met again and again, full of unspoken understanding and a desire that transcended language. One night, as the ship drifted through a nebula of vibrant colors, Lyra reached out and touched Ethan's face. Her fingers were cool and delicate, sending a shiver of electricity down his spine. He leaned in, and their lips met, a kiss that was both tender and fervent, a silent promise beneath the light of the stars. Then, Aethel appeared on the horizon. It wasn't a single planet but a constellation of floating cities, rings of light and ethereal structures orbiting a massive gas giant. The sight stole Ethan's breath, a testament to the brilliance and power of Lyra's people. Yet as they drew closer, a subtle unease stirred within him. The perfection of Aethel seemed almost oppressive, its order absolute. Behind that radiant beauty, he sensed a world governed by rules and expectations that someone like him, a man of Earth, might never truly understand. The stellar journey was over. But another, far more challenging one, had just begun. Lyra's paradise was now his new reality, and with it came the seed of a quiet, growing fear. Entering Aethel was a symphony of light and sound that overwhelmed Ethan's senses. Lyra's ship docked smoothly onto a floating platform, where they were greeted by beings of her kind, each one carrying the same ethereal grace and violet eyes that seemed to glow from within. Lyra, who had once appeared vulnerable in her earthly refuge, now moved with the confidence and authority of someone deeply respected among her people. Ethan, in contrast, was an outsider, a silent question mark in the midst of alien perfection. Lyra guided him through shimmering corridors and suspended gardens where bioluminescent flora pulsed with gentle light. The cities of Aethel were living marvels, architectural wonders that fused organic design with technology, defying gravity and reason. Ethan was in awe of their beauty and complexity, yet he couldn't ignore the weight of curious, and at times disapproving, stares. Lyra introduced him as a scholar from Earth, a polite euphemism meant to disguise the true nature of their bond. Together, they explored Aethel in secret. Lyra showed him the crystal temples where her people meditated, the vast libraries that held the knowledge of millennia, and the laboratories where life itself was shaped and sustained. Ethan, in turn, shared his observations, his endless questions, and his fascination with it all. The love that had blossomed between them in the depths of space grew even deeper amid Aethel's splendor. Every touch, every glance, every whispered word became an act of rebellion against the unspoken laws of her world. They found hidden sanctuaries, secluded gardens beneath trees that wept light, or observation platforms offering breathtaking views of the gas giant that Aethel orbited. In those moments, they were simply Ethan and Lyra, two lovers defying the universe. Their passion burned brightly, fueled by danger and the sweetness of the forbidden. They knew they were playing with fire, that discovery could bring ruin to them both, yet the pull between them was too strong to resist. But the perfection of Aethel concealed an unyielding rigidity. Lyra's society was built on order and purity, and the idea of a union with an outsider was anathema. The threat of exposure hung over them like a shadow, a constant reminder that their paradise was, in truth, forbidden. The glances became more frequent, the whispers more persistent. Lyra felt the mounting pressure from her people, and Ethan sensed the growing tension between love and duty. The ecstasy of their love was now intertwined with the dread of coming separation, and both knew that the time for secrets was running out. The tension in Aethel had become palpable. Whispers turned into stares, and stares into veiled accusations. The society that once appeared so harmonious and perfect now revealed its rigid, unforgiving face. One day, as Ethan and Lyra strolled through a crystal garden, they were intercepted by a group of guardians, imposing figures in silver robes, their violet eyes stripped of all warmth. With a nearly imperceptible sigh, Lyra knew their time of secrecy had come to an end. They were taken before the Elder Council, a body of venerable beings who embodied Aethel's laws and traditions. The council chamber was vast and austere, its walls seeming to absorb the very light, and a heavy silence hung in the air. Ethan felt small and insignificant, a speck of dust in a universe built on flawless order. Then the voice of the High Elder, a being of immeasurable age, echoed through the chamber with cold authority. "Lyra, daughter of Aethel, "You have violated our most sacred decree," said the High Elder, his voice a metallic echo. "You have bound yourself to an outsider, a being from a lesser world, a threat to the purity of our lineage and the order of our society." Lyra tried to speak, her voice trembling with emotion. She spoke of love, of connection, of the soul she saw within Ethan, but her words fell on deaf ears. The laws of Aethel were absolute, etched into the foundations of millennia. "Love knows no boundaries, Elder," Lyra declared, her voice growing stronger. "Ethan is good, pure of heart. He is not a threat." The High Elder slowly shook his head, his eyes fixed on her. "The purity of Aethel cannot be compromised. Union with external species is forbidden. It is a law that protects our very existence." Ethan, who had remained silent until then, felt anger rising within him. He was no criminal, and Lyra was no transgressor. They were simply two souls who had found each other across the stars. The ultimatum was clear and cruel. Ethan was to be sent back to Earth immediately, while Lyra would undergo a process of re-education to purge her mind of such deviations. Their separation was inevitable, unless they could somehow defy a system that seemed unbreakable. Despair tightened around Ethan's heart, but when he looked into Lyra's eyes, he saw a spark of defiance burning there. They might be doomed, but they would not surrender without a fight. The shadow of law had fallen upon them, yet their love still burned, a stubborn flame against the encroaching darkness. After the ultimatum from the Elder Council, Ethan and Lyra took refuge in one of Aethel's most secluded gardens, a sanctuary of bioluminescent flora that now seemed melancholic under the looming threat. Time was slipping away, and with every passing moment, the reality of their impending separation became sharper and more painful. Lyra, brilliant and relentless, scoured Aethel's archives, searching for precedents, loopholes in the laws, anything that might give them a chance. Ethan, drawing on his experience navigating dangerous worlds, explored possible escape routes, though he knew fleeing Aethel would be nearly impossible. They sought allies, but Aethel's society was monolithic in its devotion to the law. A few expressed sympathy, but none dared defy the council. The idea of an interspecies love was inconceivable to most, an aberration that threatened the very foundation of their civilization. Lyra tried to appeal to compassion, to the notion that love was a universal force, but the elders saw it as weakness, a contamination. "We can't fight them, Ethan," Lyra whispered one night, her violet eyes brimming with tears that never fell. "The laws are the foundation of Aethel. To defy them is to defy everything we are." Ethan held her tightly, feeling the tremor in her body. He could sense her pain, the internal struggle between her love for him and her loyalty to her people. "Then we'll run," he rasped. "We can find another place, a world where we won't be judged." Lyra shook her head. "They would find us. And I cannot abandon my people. Not completely." The truth was, Aethel was a part of her, and the idea of becoming a pariah forever was a burden she could not bear. They spent their final moments together in a bittersweet mix of passion and despair. Every touch, every kiss, was a farewell, an attempt to etch each other into their souls. They knew they were standing at the edge of an abyss, and the fall would be inevitable. The final ultimatum arrived. The Elder Council had decided. Ethan would be escorted back to his ship and sent to Earth, while Lyra would be confined for a period of re-education. There were no more arguments, no more pleas. The fight for love had come to an end, and the defeat was bitter. As the Guardians approached, Ethan and Lyra held each other one last time, a silent promise that no matter the distance, their hearts would remain intertwined. The pain of their separation was a wound they both knew would never fully heal. The farewell was a blur of pain and despair. On a desolate launch platform, under the cold gaze of Aethel's guardians, Ethan and Lyra were torn apart. Their fingers brushed one last time, a brief, electric contact that seemed to contain the entirety of their love and the agony of their loss. Lyra's violet eyes, once ablaze with fire and passion, were now glistening with unshed tears, a silent promise that he would never be forgotten. "I will find you, Ethan," she whispered into his mind, the words echoing through his soul as he was pushed into the ship. The journey back to Earth was torture. The same ship that had carried them to the stars, full of hope and discovery, had become a tomb of silence and loneliness. Every passing star was a reminder of the growing distance between him and Lyra. Every moment felt like an eternity of longing. Ethan sat in the pilot's seat, hands on the controls, but his mind was far away, replaying every laugh, every touch, every kiss shared with Lyra. The cosmos, once a tapestry of wonder, now felt cold and indifferent. When Earth finally appeared on the horizon, there was no joy, only the heavy weight of inevitability. The blue and green planet, once his home, now felt alien and desolate. The ruins that had once promised adventure and discovery were now only echoes of his own shattered soul. The ship landed with a soft thud in a familiar clearing, near his old hideout. The air, once so familiar, now felt heavy, saturated with the scent of dust and decay. Ethan stepped out of the ship, his steps heavy, his heart a stone in his chest. The setting sun cast long shadows across the ruined landscape, painting the world in shades of orange and purple, colors that reminded him of Aethel's beauty and Lyra's eyes. He wandered aimlessly, the silence of Earth a stark contrast to the vibrant life he had left behind. His hideout, once a refuge, now felt like a tomb. He was back, but he was no longer the same man who had left. Adventure had changed him, love had transformed him, and loss had broken him. Earth, without Lyra, was an empty place, a desert of memories. He looked up at the night sky, at the stars shining indifferent and distant, knowing that somewhere out there, Lyra was gazing at the same constellations, perhaps feeling the same ache in her heart. His lonely return was only the beginning of a haunted existence, an eternal yearning for a love he could never reach. Years dragged on, stretching into a decade of silence and yearning. Ethan Cross, once a daring treasure hunter, had become a man marked by loss. His blue eyes, once alive with adventure, now carried the melancholy of a starless night sky. He continued to live among the ruins of Earth, but his existence was only a shadow of what it had been. The artifacts he uncovered no longer held their former luster, they were empty reminders of a world he had exchanged for another, and lost both. His days followed a litany of memories. Every sunset reminded him of Ethel's vibrant skies, every evening breeze carried the echo of Lyra's voice in his mind. Night after night, he gazed at the stars, no longer with the curiosity of an explorer, but with the desperate hope of a lover abandoned. He searched for a sign, a distant light, any trace that Lyra had kept her promise and would find him again. Yet the cosmos remained indifferent, vast and silent. Ethan had become the silent guardian of the ruins where he had found her. The hidden chamber, once a place of wonder and discovery, was now a personal sanctuary, a memorial to his lost love. Hours were spent tracing the alien symbols on the walls, trying to decipher a message that might never have existed. Piece by piece, he had reconstructed Lyra's ship, not with the intention of flight, but as an act of devotion, a tangible link to the world she represented. He tried to move on, sought comfort among other survivors, but the void Lyra had left in his heart was too vast to fill. Conversations felt hollow, laughter forced. He was a man who had seen the stars, who had loved an alien being, and Earth, with its mundane concerns, now seemed small and insignificant by comparison. The pain of their separation did not fade with time, it transformed, becoming an intrinsic part of who he was. The echoes of Aethel resonated within his soul, a bittersweet symphony of memory. He clung to them, for they were all that remained of his forbidden paradise. Hope, though faint, never fully abandoned him. He knew their love was a force that transcended distance and time, and that somewhere in the vast universe, Lyra still existed. And as long as a single star shone in the sky, Ethan Cross would continue to look upward, waiting for the day when the echoes of Aethel would once again become a melody. Time, the great equalizer, had carved deep lines into Ethan's face, yet his eyes, though weary, still held a spark of hope. He had returned to the hidden chamber, the place where it all began, now a sanctuary of memories. Lyra's ship, which he had reconstructed with almost religious reverence, stood there as a silent monument to a love that had defied the cosmos. He spent his days caring for it, keeping it in flight-ready condition, not because he expected to use it, but because it was the last tangible connection to Lyra. One afternoon, while cleaning one of the control panels, his fingers brushed against a hidden compartment he had never noticed before. With a soft click, it opened, revealing a small artifact, elegantly crafted from a metal that seemed to absorb light. It was neither weapon nor tool, but something more intimate. As he touched it, a holographic projection shimmered into the air, revealing Lyra's image. She looked older, her violet eyes still full of wisdom, but now carrying a serenity Ethan had never seen. "Ethan," her voice resonated in his mind, as clear as if she were beside him. "If you are seeing this, then I could not return. But know that my love for you has never waned. The laws of Aethel are strong, but love is stronger. I have found a way to be with you, even if not in body." The projection of Lyra extended her hand, and a complex star map appeared, showing a newly discovered constellation, a cluster of stars Ethan had never seen before. "This is our place, Ethan. A place where our hearts can meet, beyond the ruins, beyond the stars. Seek it out, and know that I will always be there." The projection faded, leaving Ethan alone in the chamber, the artifact pulsing softly in his hand. It was not the reunion he had dreamed of, not the embrace he had longed for over decades. But it was a message, proof that their love had transcended distance and time. Lyra had found a way to be with him, not in flesh, but in spirit, in a place only they could know. Ethan stepped out of the chamber, the artifact clutched firmly in his hand. He looked up at the night sky, at the myriad of stars speckling the darkness. He no longer felt the piercing pain of loss, but a melancholic acceptance, a peace that could only come from understanding a love as vast as the universe itself. His love for Lyra was not a story of tragedy, but of transcendence. He would live the rest of his days on Earth, but his heart would always dwell among the stars, a silent guardian of a love that had bloomed beyond the ruins, a love that was, and always would be, stars beyond.